Jalen Hurts seems to be a topic of discussion a lot around the NFL. And of course, with local Eagles sports media, they trash him all the time. It seems like it's the only thing they really do anymore. And I hate to do this to all of you, but I've got about a little less than 2 minutes of ESP talking about the lack of support for Jalen Hurts from the organization because I think it's an interesting thing to talk about and then also counter with some stuff from the organization that ESP says does not support Jalen Hurts. So we're going to take a listen to this. We're going to talk about it, react. I'm curious what y'all think as well. All right, let's just dig in, man. Let's just dig in.
I think that when you look at this Jalen Hurts thing and you remove the emotion and you remove your own opinion of Jalen, it is plain and obvious what is happening here. The Eagles are not in on Jalen Hurts. They're just not. You can have your opinion. I can have mine. We can point out he won the Super Bowl. We can point out he always makes the playoffs. All of those things are valid. It doesn't matter what any of us think. And it could not be more obvious coming out of the Jefferson training complex. They are very hesitant about Jalen Hurts. How many quarterbacks win a Super Bowl and don't get a new contract? And I think what's interesting about this article is you're right. We've only really discussed this from the Eagles side of it. What do they think of Jalen? Do they want to commit to Jalen? Do they think he's a good quarterback? We don't look at this from Jalen's side. And I think this is one of the first times we've saw maybe Jalen's camp push back a little bit, right? And keep this in mind. When Jalen signed his contract extension, his big one after 2022, before he won the Super Bowl, what did he get in that contract? A no trade clause. I think Jalen has always been aware the team's not super in on him. They tried to trade for a different quarterback after 2021. When they drafted him in 2020, they told the whole world he's a backup, and the idea that he could push Carson Wentz was crazy. He's always had to deal with these type of stories. This is not the first offseason stories have come out that cite sources from the building that are critical of Jalen. And I think Jalen knows that, right? I think Jalen knows going into this year, he probably doesn't have the full support of the organization he's going to play for. So whatever anyone thinks of Jalen, we can't ignore it like we did the Carson thing. We can't deny it like we did the AJ thing, because how did both those things end up? They traded AJ. They traded AJ and they traded Carson. This is a huge year for Jalen. And this is the other part of it. Does Jalen want to continue to be in Philadelphia is an angle we've not discussed either. But it's very obvious he knows he does not have or does not feel like he has the full support of the organization.
Oh, the level of stupid in here. But I get that, y'all. Eagles fans, that's what you're going to get from ESP is a monumental Jalen Hurts hater. What's really wild about this, what cracks me up is they have the cojones to do this kind of crap is he sits there and acts at the beginning like, oh, your opinion, we can set that aside. Your opinion doesn't matter and my opinion doesn't matter. And then he spends the entire segment making crap up and giving you his opinion on what the Eagles organization feels toward Jalen Hurts, right? He didn't give you anyone in the organization on video saying, hey, yeah, we're not really sold on Jalen Hurts. We're not too sure about Jalen Hurts. We might be moving on from Jalen Hurts. And then, of course, he twists and moves goalposts on things. When does a Super Bowl MVP not get a new contract? He got a new contract 2 years before that for getting them to the Super Bowl, right? His contract was only 2 years. He still has guaranteed money in the 2027 season. So this idea that because the Eagles haven't given Jalen Hurts an extension on his contract right now means they're not in on Jalen Hurts is absolutely stupid. It's either stupid or you just hate Jalen Hurts and you're lying instead. Uh, Car- Carson Wentz thing. It's wild how, especially people in the media, are so conveniently forgetful about PR, about public relations. Think back to what Carson Wentz, how he was positioned with the Philadelphia Eagles at the time that Jalen Hurts was drafted. If you have in the back of your mind, hey, you know what? We didn't want to waste a first round pick on a QB, but Jalen Hurts still being available in the second round, we're going to let this guy compete with Carson Wentz and see what happens because we're not fully in on Carson Wentz right now. Do you think they're going to say that? No, it's a second round QB from a guy that a lot of people didn't think maybe had what it took to make that next step. And they're going to say exactly what they say. What they said is, hey, We think this guy could be a really good backup in the NFL. And hey, we all know with quarterback injuries, that's an important position to have a guy who can be a backup in the NFL and be productive if your guy goes down. Hey, didn't we just see that not that long before with Carson Wentz? So that's a really disingenuous argument. So he tells you it's not about opinion, and then he just gives you nothing but opinion because he doesn't have anyone in the front office to back it up. And then he makes it like having a no trade clause means an organization hasn't bought in on that player, which is absurd. A whole lot of players in a whole lot of sports have no trade clauses. And it's not even always about being, you know, wanting to be where they are for the rest of their career. Now, that may play a part, but no, a no trade clause is all about leverage for where and when you can be traded if the team wants to trade you. Okay? If Jalen Hurts decides, or they both decide mutually, hey, Jalen wants to leave, the Eagles don't want him anymore. Now Jalen's not going to get shipped off to the fiasco in Cleveland. He's not going to get shipped off to the New York Jets. Jalen Hurts is going to look around, and I'm sure he's going to have his people making phone calls and this and that. And Jalen Hurts is going to find the teams that he approves of. Hey, this here's 5 teams that I think would be a great situation for me. You can trade me to one of these 5 teams. That's what a no trade clause is. And for ESPN to sit here and yap like this about how, oh, well, it's a no trade clause because the Eagles are not bought in on Jalen Hurts is stupid. It really is stupid. And you shouldn't have the job that you have if you're going to yap about something as basic as that and get it completely wrong. Right after you sat there and told us how our opinion and your opinion doesn't matter. And then you spent the whole segment giving us your opinion. What are we talking about, my man? What are we talking about? But by the way, I want to finish up with something else because this is somebody in the fever, the
I
fever,
love
the
Jalen. I mean,
the what team are we talking about? The Eagles. Jeffrey Lurie. You know this guy?
I love Jalen. I mean, there's no bigger fan of Jalen than me. Clutch Gene, absolutely. The guy MVP of the Super Bowl 13 months ago should have been MVP of the Super Bowl right before that against Kansas City the first time. Uh, Exceptional and so dedicated. I mean, I think you probably know, spend a lot of time with Jalen, and he's, as I do with most quarterbacks, and incredibly dedicated to the game, to winning, and being a huge winner. And I love everything about him. So anyway, those things take over time. We never would discuss it. He's in the middle of a new contract now. Yeah. I love Jalen. I mean, there's no bigger fan of Jalen than me.
Well, there you go, ESP. There is the owner, Jeffrey Lurie, talking about Jalen Hurts. I don't know about you. Now, again, to be fair with what I just said, you can go and talk about PR and public relations, but there is something that we have on the record. So we're not all just conjecture. It's not all conjecture by all of us about what we feel the front office uh, might think about Jalen Hurts and his future in Philadelphia. We've got the owner publicly standing behind his quarterback, Jalen Hurts, saying positive things about Jalen Hurts. And again, that might not mean anything either. But here's the difference, ESP, between you and me is I will say that. I will admit that. I will analyze that and say, hey, here's what we have. But again, it could be just PR. Just like the comments about Jalen being only a backup was PR to probably make Carson Wentz feel better, because we all know how Carson Wentz reacted to that. He was a very, very entitled guy when he was here because of how high he was drafted, and he did not believe, because of his draft status, that he should have to compete for a job. So did you really think, especially when the Eagles had no idea what Jalen could actually be in the pros, that they were going to publicly put out there that Jalen was competing with it for a job with Carson Wentz? Carson Wentz would have absolutely fallen apart. Hell, he fell apart anyway. Uh, but yeah, anyway, let me know your thoughts on on all this in the comments below. And do you think? Because again, and now I don't think it's a full amount, but Jalen Hurts has guaranteed money in 2027, right? So he still has technically 2 more years. So, do you think it's odd that there's been no contract extension? And by the way, those talks could be going on without us knowing about it. It's just obviously not urgent because he has guaranteed money. This isn't the last year of guaranteed money, despite the fact that in this offseason, the media kept telling us it was. Again, there's another lie, or it could be a mistake. But if it's a mistake, man, none of them should have their jobs. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll talk to y'all later.